David Goss and Tom Bogert here at Soccer Wise. We are going down to Texas to talk Austin FC, a team that had a wholesale set of changes this year, and they're going to be host of the All-Star game, Tom. You told me we're going. Whether I want to or not, we will be in Austin, Texas.
Nothing better in terms of weather than Austin at the end of July for a couple white guys like us. So get ready to learn Climate Cool shirts, buddy. Get ready to learn probably sweat towels. But we're going to be happy no matter what to be there. So I can't wait. And a quick note on Austin. We've said this about some other cities. Seattle is the first one that comes to mind. Atlanta is another one that their fans are kind of spoiled with local coverage. Austin FC is absolutely in that upper echelon of that conversation for fans that are pleasantly spoiled by all of the coverage options. For Austin, it was difficult to only have one podcast on. We could have chose from several ones. It was no disrespect to any of the other wonderful podcasts out there, like our guy Phil West, who wasn't a part of this. So if you're an Austin fan, appreciate it because this is not the norm across the league.
No, I believe they have so many podcasts that I was invited to help guest fill in on a fantasy draft that had 5 other Austin FC podcasts in it. So to have that optionality, yeah, you are very lucky. We are all fortunate to have those members of this league. I can't wait to get down to Austin. I don't do any of the things you say. I just wear black, so you hope that people can't see the sweat as much as possible. I don't care if it makes me hotter. Last time I was in Austin, though, during the summer, I went and did a river float. Have you ever done a river float?
I haven't, but I need every piece of photo that you have of this trip.
Dude, river floats were made for you. So you sit in the water all the time, and you just bring coolers, and you literally just float and drink. But you're like, you move with a little bit of pace sometimes, which is great. It was the first time I'd ever done it, and it's like become my passion. I haven't done it since, so that shows how committed I am to my passions. But every year,
I'm so in.
I'm like, we should do it. Well, that's not true. I did a small one in Pennsylvania one time. That was less official, but also
it was in a pool.
Kind of, pretty much. It was at a creek, I would call it. But there was a cooler, and when we were in Austin, it was so official. We brought like a tray of sandwiches, and we got our own tube for the sandwiches, so they lived there the whole time.
That's phenomenal.
I think I brought, we got into the hundreds on the amount of beers and seltzers that I put there, because you got to take care of people. You got to make sure people stay hydrated. So maybe if we're able to get our timing right, we can work on
bringing my bathing suit. I'm bringing my bathing suit. And if I have to do this alone at 9 p.m. at night, I will.
Okay. I think floating down rivers once the sun's down is a really good idea. So I think you should stay committed to that cause.
By myself.
We did eventually choose. We had to choose one Austin FC podcast. We went with Moontower Soccer. They have been very kind to us so far in our time at Soccer Wise. And we are excited to have Landon on to talk about this team and this club and what everything can be in 2025 for Austin FC. Let's go to Texas. Let's talk a little Austin FC. It is supposed to be a very big year under Adolfo Burrell and the new rebuild for this Austin FC side. It's also, I believe, the host of the All-Star game. So maybe we will be there at some point this year. We love to spend some time with our local hosts. Landon here, Moontower Soccer. I've been a guest on your show, so now I get you to come in the opposite direction. Anyone listening to Soccer Wise, go check out the show. They do an awesome job covering all things Major League Soccer and soccer in the country on top of Austin, which is going to be one of the fascinating teams this year. So, Landon, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, glad to be here, guys.
It is, Tom, one of the teams that you have spent some time talking about over the last 6 to 8 months. They broke their transfer record last summer. Then they broke their transfer record this offseason. Then they broke their transfer record this offseason. So, if I'm right on time, I believe they're about to break their transfer record in the next few minutes. But for what we have right now, we like to do our transfers in or outs. Then we'll play our Doyleisms. We'll talk about this team a little bit. And then we'll get to our over-under from Andrew Wiebe, who is slacking a little bit. And I actually think the line is less New Jersey this time, Connecticut/Pennsylvania, than it has been in the past. But we'll see how we fall on that one. This is a good one to talk about when you start with transfers, Tom. This has been a team, it's been central to your life.
Exactly. It's been very, very busy for Austin FC this winter. First of all, they dismissed head coach Josh Wolf, moved very quickly to hire Nico Estevez, and then they went into the market and brought in 2 new huge DPs, just like you said, 2 new club record signings. They had a club record departure. Again, it's a young club, but all of these are serious fees. Sebastian Driussi leaves for $10 million to River Plate. Brandon Vasquez comes in for $10 million from CF Monterrey, and Mirzo Uzuni comes in for just north of $12 million from Granada in Spain. So it's been super, super busy. Those are the three biggest moves that they made. I can't wait to see the remade attack. But oh yeah, they had some more additions. They redid the midfield, with Ilya Sanchez, Bisor Sabovic, and Nicholas Dubrovsky. Those three players could be three new starters, but I think Danny Pereira is still going to be playing a big, big part. So Alex Ring is gone, Ethan Finley, Matt Hedges, Joan Valencia, all of those are gone. Jossie Zardes are gone. But again, it has been a huge transformation for Austin FC this winter.
It is, Len, I think something maybe people would say was overdue. It's really the first time we've seen like a big flip of the roster for this club, especially an off season like this. It is normally one of the teams that it's one piece here or there since expansion, but not all together. What's been sort of your reaction to watching this happen, and what's sort of been the fan base as, moves have come out?
Yeah, whenever Burrell came in, I guess it was in the summer of 2023. We were excited about his pedigree, his contacts, but he'd never done this particular job, right? And so we were curious to see what was going to happen. He wasn't able to make a ton of moves early on because of Austin had a lot of bad contracts that were just kind of impossible to get off of. And so he kind of had to use the spots as they came. And finally last summer we got some decently big moves. And then this winter's just been crazy. Lots of insinuation from folks in national media, and then also just things I've heard around town here in Austin, that this ownership group is kind of cheap, and they're not going to spend in every part of the organization. And so I was thinking, like, okay, maybe we're not going to get any of these big guys. Maybe Burrell can do it on the cheap and bring in smart contracts like Guilherme Biru, Mikhail Dessler, Svatak are all really cheap players for the quality that they bring. So like, okay, maybe that's going to be the way forward. Then we sell Driussi, get way more money than anybody thought we were going to, and bring in Vasquez. At that point, I'm like, okay, that's just a straight swap. So they overspent there because they had the Driussi money. Then the Uzuni thing comes in. It's like, okay, where did all this come from? So we've been as surprised as you guys have been. But talking about the guys going out, Alex Ring, Finley, Hedges, Zardes, these are all the kind of guys that you might say, okay, on-field production-wise, these guys are probably not worth the money they're making, but they're great locker room guys, good guys to have around the team. I think you can afford to have one or two of those on the team. You can't have 8 of those guys on the team. And that's what Austin has been pretty much its entire existence. And at some point, you got to go out, you got to spend the money, you got to bring in a madman who just wants to score goals. And it seems like that's what they're trying to do now.
There's obviously from the expansion build, right? You're trying to build a culture fast. So that it kind of makes sense over indexing on that. It's been harder to then readjust. I'm curious though, from an emotional point of view, Alex Ring, one of first DPs, captain, all those things, Driussi as well, right? That dream season, they were the face of the team. What's it like to watch players like that go? And obviously it's changed because of the way they've performed and whatever, but what was it like to sort of see those two huge pieces walk out the door and know that first sort of era, that first act is done now?
It's really mixed. And I think a lot of our listeners will be hearing this question and knowing that I'm the wrong person to ask, because on the fan spectrum of folks who are there for the emotions, for the vibes, to like go to church on Saturday night at the stadium, those types of folks are really sad to see guys like Alex Ring especially go. The like MLS sickos who read the collective bargaining agreement for fun, all I can see when I look at Alex Ring and Jossie Zardes is their salary cap hit. And so like salute them for their service to the club. Really appreciate Alex Ring especially, man. That first season, he was the only guy every week that I was like, I feel like he did a good job. And I didn't say that about many people that year.
And he got cowboy boots, right? He loves Texas.
Oh, his little girls were always dressed in boots and hats after the games and stuff like that. So yeah, I salute the guy. Grateful for what he did for the club, but also I can't help but watch the dollar signs walk out the door when that contract ended.
Yeah. So you mentioned some of the other ones: Finley, Hedges, Valencia. bought out Zardes, so made the effort to clear out a lot of spots. Tom, you talked about the coach. It is one of the big storylines. Josh Wolf let go, and then very quickly, Nico Estevez brought in, which we were on when that happened. I think we were on when you broke the news, and we got a ton of reaction from Austin fans who are like, why are we taking a Dallas coach? Why are we sort of going retread? Like, what's the point of this? What have you made sort of since he started to step in and talk to people around the league about what he could be?
Yeah.
So,
Oh, sorry.
sorry. I thought that was to me. Did I step on Landon? My bad,
I
Landon.
don't know.
I
Someone
wanna lay off
talk. I'm not talking anymore.
So for me, I think both things are true. One, and the more important part for me, I think Nico Estevez deserved another chance in MLS. I've been pushing back at the idea of retread all offseason. Again, look at Ben Olsen. You go on looking up and down the league at a bunch of really good coaches who, for one reason or another, it either didn't work out or didn't work out well enough in their first stop. And guess what? 98% of coaches get fired or let go in some way. This is just the nature of the business. So if you don't want a coach that's never been, if you want a coach that's never been fired, you don't have many people to choose from unless you do a first-time head coach over and over and over and over again, which doesn't always lead to success. So that's true. I think that Nico Estevez deserved another job. I also very much understand the fans' concern of, well, this is also a former Greg Berhalter assistant. This is also a guy from a Texas team whose problems were the possession felt a little slow or the attack wasn't really living up to its potential. When things went wrong for Josh Wolf in Austin outside of 2022, that was the biggest issue, that and defensive transition. Nico Estevez's issues in Dallas were a little bit different because let's just be honest, the back line did not have a lot of talent. So Nico kind of wanted to play more expansive, and then getting in job-saving mode, he had to be more pragmatic. So I understand why Austin fans would be like, isn't this just Josh Wolf 2.0? And there are similarities there, but there's going to be a lot of differences. It's on Nico to win over the fans. It's on Nico to get the most out of this attack. Again, you have $30 million worth of attacking talent, give or take, between Uzuni, Brandon Vasquez, and Usman Bukhari to try to figure it out. I think that this defensive unit is better, particularly like Brad Stuver in goal is one of the best keepers in the league. The center backs, I wouldn't call them elite, but I think that they're better than what Dallas had under Nico Estevez. So it's a big task. I totally understand why fans would have some consternation, but Nico Estevez deserved another chance, and he has to prove that.
Yeah, whenever my co-host got tipped off to the Estevez hiring before that kind of started getting out, and he told me about it, I was like pretty surprised at the time.
Yeah.
And knew that the fan reaction was going to be negative when it came out. The club has very much been on a charm offensive since the firing of Josh Wolf. They knew that he never really did much to endear himself to the fans as a person, let alone results on the field, but as a person. They threw Estevez in front of fans immediately as soon as he got here. They've been doing that with players. They've been very much trying to open up the club a little bit. A club that was very tight-lipped and kind of closed off under the Reina Wolf era. And so
Yes.
I think all of that has been really, really positive, and I think we'll buy Estevez time with the fans. Like I don't know, I'm kind of the opinion like maybe that shouldn't matter as much, but it will, and that's the truth. Going back to Tom's point of Estevez deserving another chance, I think a lot of folks here just see his time at Dallas, his time under Berhalter, and those have stigmas to them for various reasons in this country and in this city. But if you look back at his background before that, he coached the Valencia first team when he was in his 20s for a few games. He coached their second team. He was a key member of the coaching staff of their whole academy system that produced a lot of really good talent. And so if you look at that part of his pedigree, and then the fact that he also knows the league, is familiar with MLS, is Spanish, so kind of on the same wavelength as far as what he believes player development and tactical strategy should look like with Burrell, and then they've brought in a bunch of Spanish coaches as well. I think there's a lot to like here. The proof will be in the pudding. We'll see what it looks like when it comes out on the field, but I think Estevez does deserve a chance, and I think that fans have come around to that opinion as well. But if he starts losing games when the season starts, that might turn south pretty quick.
The obvious part that once the news came out was like, right, he has a background in a soccer ideology similar to Burrell, but he has MLS experience, and there aren't really a lot of people that fit that. So I think our assumption was Burrell was just going to tap into his history and just pull someone into the U.S. who hadn't really worked here before.
Names you wouldn't believe, right?
Well,
This is the thing he said over and over. He set himself up for failure with that one.
yeah, I'm not going to be quoted on that one. That's not my fault. I didn't say that. But then, like, it ends up making sense, right? In the end, and yeah, so maybe you set yourself up poorly. Obviously, the connection and baggage to Josh Wolf is not easy. Luigi Gonzalez probably thrown in there somewhere as well as a former Texas national team assistant, all of that stuff. But I do think you're looking at someone in Estevez who has his own clear soccer ideas, and that was part of why Greg Berhalter brought him in, was to bring other ideas and sort of challenge him. And he has done a really good job at the academy ranks, which is something that I would hope Austin would be invested in. And like, they need to take the next step of connecting that youth setup to the first team, because they are one of those expansion teams where they sort of built the two separately, which is totally fine. Now you're into the next step of trying to sort of make that leap. And I think Estevez can be a part of that. And we have seen coaches learn a lot, it feels like, from one job not going well and coming out of that to then moving on to the next one. And the hope is that's the case with Estevez here. Let's go to our Doyleism, and then we can jump off the back of that.
Austin's one of the stories of the season, well, the off season, based upon how big they bet on that front line. I mean, they spent almost $25 million on Murto Ozuni and Brandon Vasquez combined. You add in Omar Bukhari, who they had spent $7 million on in the summer window. That's $30 million worth of attacking talent on that front line. And I love that kind of ambition, but I look at the midfield and I'm not exactly sure where the service is going to come from. They went out and they got Basar Sabovic, who, has a decent resume, but he's not a creator. I think they're going to push Danny Pereira up into a free 8 role, and I like him in that role, but it's a risk to have a guy who's been primarily kind of a D-mid or double pivot guy to be your primary feeder of what's supposed to be such a high-powered offense. And then, of course, they're one of the few teams left that plays with 2 overlapping fullbacks. So you're going to see a lot of guys that are just like bombing from end line to end line in theory. Not necessarily in practice, because the head coach, Nico Estevez, he didn't have his Dallas team playing like that. He had one of the fullbacks tucking in and one of the other, the other fullback pushing forward. It was more balanced in the sort of 3-2-2-3 possession shape that we see most managers around the world go for. So there's like a lot of questions. There is unquestionably also much more talent in Austin. I kind of threw up my hands and picked up to finish middle of the pack in the Western Conference. And given their recent history, given their entire history, that would be a pretty good outcome.
I love how it's threw up my hands and then picked them to finish there. A lot there from Doyle. Let's go across the field, though. Let's start in central midfield. Like, Landon, what's your expectation of how this sets up and what the responsibilities are for the roles? Because right now, I think, Tom, in our depth chart, we've got Ilie Sanchez in there as a starter alongside Sabovic and Pereira.
Yeah, first of all, a nice tight 15 seconds there by Matthew Doyle on the Austin FC lines. That's why he threw up his hands. He just kept talking. So Ilie Sanchez, I think he's going to be starting 6 when Austin played St. Louis in their preseason game. He was starting. It was essentially their strongest 11 outside of Uzuni because he's physically not there yet, or physically wasn't there, at least as of Saturday when I watched them play. So that's what I think that the trio is going to be. I don't have exactly the same worries of chance creation for this team. I understand where Doyle's coming from, but they get so much from their wingbacks or fullbacks getting forward. And I think that Ousmane Bukhari, he's going to be the chief creator. A lot of teams in MLS use via a number 10, and that makes it a little bit more unpredictable which side you're going to go on. But the way that this team is set up, it's for Murto Ozuni to play as an inside forward off the left wing. Biro is coming up on the overlap, and a lot of play would make sense going down the right through Bukhari. And then you have Uzuni hopefully getting a chance to kind of post up on fullbacks on the back post. You have Brandon Vasquez causing all the havoc he's going to. So I still think that the chief creator is going to be Ousmane Bukhari, and the wingbacks are going to do a lot in the attack. That I don't really care that they don't have a natural number 10 in the midfield, because I think that was part of their issues in the past. They couldn't handle defensive transitions. Part of that was one of the technically midfielders was the second forward of Sebastian Driussi. And that works in 2022 and the way that you set it up. But if you're getting all the creation from your wings, then you can play like 3 8s or a 6, an 8.5, and an 8 in that midfield.
Yeah, I that's my take too. Watching the St. Louis preseason game, the Coachella games were the first time we actually got to see what Estevez was doing with his team. And yeah, I think you're right about the starting 11 as far as that midfield goes. I think Sanchez, it's his spot to lose at the 6. Then once Sabovic is in town now and training with the team, so once he's ready to go, I expect him to walk into the starting lineup. That third spot, I think Owen Wolf and Danny Pereira are both going to get a lot of time there. I would expect Danny Pereira to be the starter, but I think Wolf will get a lot of time too. And yeah, talking about the fullbacks, I think these two fullbacks in Dessler and Biru offer some pretty interesting options as far as how you can use them in the St. Louis and Galaxy games the other day. They were often floating one of the fullbacks into midfield, a la like Zinchenko was doing at Manchester City and Arsenal. And then as the ball would rotate around, he'd make an internal run and run to the inside, which Dessler is kind of like a fullback, more in the model of like a central midfielder as opposed to a winger.
Yeah.
And then Biru is just like a really clean on the ball, really creative player. And so I think getting him up the middle and into central spaces is almost more valuable than that straight up traditional fullback overlap. And I think they're going to try to use both of those guys a lot in the buildup, and then in that attacking shape, have at least one of them in the mix, trying to get guys into space.
Yeah, it seems to fit what Estevez likes, right? Having ability to rotate positions a little, because then in this situation, what you're talking about, if a Dessler does go a little bit wider, but you know he's a clean possession player, Bukhari can come inside and he can find the game where he wants to and know that he's not going to get caught out in a transition the other way, because Dessler's a safe option. And when he's in possession, you assume he's going to be able to hold the ball and keep the game rotating. You brought up Owen Wolf and Danny Pereira. To me, they are two of the most fascinating players in MLS this season. I think Pereira's ceiling is super high. We are reaching the point in his career where it's, what are you? And like, what are you going to be great at? Like, I was at the USA Venezuela game and I was the only one who was like only watching Danny Pereira. And of course, Patrick Ajaman, shout out to the top. But like, and Pereira sat so deep in that game. And I think part of that was like, it's chaos. You've never played with these players before. They don't know what they're doing. But like, he was sitting on top of the center backs. And then when I see him in his best moments in MLS, he's dribbling through the lines and he's creating chances because of his ability to beat guys 1v1 in a central area, which very few players can consistently do. What is his pure position is going to be the question mark still. And then how effective can he be in the things he has to do? Because if he is the highest central midfielder, he's going to have to play some final balls. He is going to have to hit some killer passes around the edge of the 18. Or if it's Owen Wolf, I think Owen Wolf has gotten on the field, and for much as people want to complain about his connection to Josh Wolf and any of that, he's a good player. He deserves to be on the field in MLS, but it was because he was really solid. He was not elite at anything. So if he ends up being that, great. He's someone who can hang around a midfield. If he's going to be a national team player or whatever comes forward, it's what can you do elite. And so I think there's a lot of interesting question marks, but let's hit the front line. Let's talk about expectations. Andrew Wiebe set our over-underline. I'm going to use this just to start this conversation because it makes sense on what we're talking about. He set the over-under line for the team on goals, which I think means we're really talking about this front three. He set it at 56.5 goals in MLS this season. Last year, Austin finished last in the Western Conference with 39. And I'm sure you don't want to think about that, so I'll bring it up again. Austin was the lowest scoring team in the Western Conference. 56.5 would have put them like 11th or 12th in the league. So right outside the top three. It would also put them basically 6th or 7th in the West, which puts you from a goal scoring point of view in a playoff conversation. What do you make of that line, Landon? What do you make of the potential of this front three?
Yeah, I'll take the over on that one. I think we did our over under prediction show this last week, and I think I picked Austin to score 57 goals this year as
right on the line.
So
you're gonna ask for a push? That'd be incredible if you just said 56.
So yeah, I mean, I don't have any doubt about the quality of these front three guys. They've shown over the last several years that they can produce. I still am a little concerned about, I think Doyle brought it up in his clip about not having that one chance creator. And like you don't have to have one guy do it all. Like you can be successful without the one guy doing it all, but you do have to have the collective do it. And I still just don't know, can this particular collective create enough chances for these guys to score that many goals? Because I think if you get them in the spaces to score, they will do it. And so, yeah, I'll take the over for that reason.
I'm on the over as well because, again, not only do I think that their plan A will be fine, they have a plan B now because of the brute force that that Brandon Vasquez can bring to this team. I think that that's going to help a lot on set pieces, and also the other side, like the plan C, the plan B-ish, is Usman Bukhari's pace. So it's not just, hey, if you sit deep and we can't break you down, we're screwed. That's what happened last year. That's what happened in 23. In 22, like they were killing teams against Driussi, overperformed his XG by a lot. There was a lot of really good players in that attack in that team. Now, again, they have other ways to score that isn't just a 15-pass sequence. Everything goes perfect on the training ground into the game. That's exactly how we drew it up. Like, they're going to get some goals because Brandon Vasquez is just going to bully somebody. They're going to get some goals because Usman Bukhari is just going to run by somebody who's like, oh, I got you, and then he's gone. So, for me, around that number is probably where they fall. If you set that a little higher to be like a top 7 goal-scoring team in the league, then I don't know, but I think to be in the top 12, which is around where over 56.5 would be, I'm taking the over.
Yeah, another thing mentioning about how Estevez wants to play, from what he said to the media and then what we've seen in these 2 preseason games, he looks like he's going to want to play more in transition, play more vertically at times. And that is where I actually feel quite good about this team, with the speed of Bukhari and then the transition ability of guys like Uzuni and Vasquez. And then like Sabovic and Sanchez, they may not be that lock picking number 10, but they can hit that pass. Like they can turn quickly and play that pass into feet. And so those are the moments where I actually feel quite good about that. And I think that's something that Estevez can take advantage of.
This, one of my things that I've really enjoyed watching at Cincinnati with Brandon Vasquez was his ability to sort of float between, I have to be the highest player in scoring goals, to I can drop in and create, depending on who his partners were. So I'm going to throw another number out here. In Cincinnati, he finished his last year, he had 4 assists. His second last year, he had 8 assists. The year before, he had 3 assists. If I put the line for assists for Brandon Vasquez at 6.5 this year, are you taking over or under?
So for me, I really love Vasquez's game. I think he's unselfish for a center forward. And if he's playing with like a strike partner, if they do spend more time playing out of the 3-5-2 where Bukhari's underneath Uzuni and Vasquez, I think that's an easy over. If they're spending most of the year in a 4-3-3, which I'm expecting them to, but again, things change, then I think I have to go a little bit under, just because like he'll be at the end of everything. In a strike partnership, like when he was with Brenner, he would drop off sometimes and Brenner would run in behind. So that can still happen with Uzuni. I just think that, again, in a 4-3-3, he's going to have less of those opportunities to show how unselfish he is. Again, he'll be great and hold up and everything else, but prime assist locations, I think he'll be more on the other end.
Landon?
Yeah, I agree with that. I'll take the under, but I do think he could get close to it, or even potentially
it's
get
very
the
close.
over, because of Uzuni. And like Uzuni, regardless of if he's starting as a second striker on the wing, the guy's going to get in the box and try to score goals. Like that's where he's going to end up more times than not, whenever he gets the opportunity to. And I think just for that reason and how prolific he scored in Spain the last few years, like a ball is at some point is going to bounce off of Vasquez and Uzuni's going to score it.
I'm going to take the over on both. By the way, I never said on Weebies. I'm going to take the over on assists. I think even if it's a 4-3-3, I think he's going to drop in and get the ball to his feet and create space that he's able to play Bukhari and Uzuni into. And I think that's going to be a huge facet of this team. And I think early on, I think he's going to take a lot of the role because he is the DP now. He has been in MLS. I think if things don't land quickly, perfectly, I think he's going to start to drop in and be like, let's play through me. I can get us through this as things start to settle. I know what it takes to carry us in moments like this. And I think he's now being sort of labeled and paid to be that player. And so I think he'll do that. And I think overall, I think the attack will hit enough over the course of the year that they get there. But they're going to be one of the teams to watch. We're going to do our watchability rankings coming up in MLS. I think we're going to have them pretty high because you talk about $30+ million spent in an attack in Major League Soccer. Like, that's Atlanta stuff. That's Inter Miami stuff. And as you said, Landon, we didn't know that Austin would be one of these teams. And so what's cool is it's not, oh, this team's doing it again. It's a new, member to the party at the top of MLS in terms of spending and what we could see this year. So we are looking forward to it. We are looking forward to getting down to Austin at some point. It's
like All-Star game. I'll see you there.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
I'll drag you guys. If you don't think you're going, I'm dragging you.
Well, it'll be. I think I'll need relief from the heat at some point. So if I can get to Austin in late July and early August, then I can really just relax and hang out. And that's
my mustache is going to burn off. It's going to incendiary.
We'll find out that Tom's is actually made of wax because he can't grow it out that robust, and it'll be melting off his face. But for anyone who doesn't already, Moontower Soccer, you can listen to it if you're listening here on SoccerWise, and anywhere else. If you're new to SoccerWise, we stream live about MLS twice a week, NWSL as well, covering the national teams, 4 to 5 shows a week, talking about all things soccer. So welcome, and come back again. So Landon, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, y'all. Appreciate it.
All right, we'll talk to everyone again soon.